Hey, what's up? Welcome to Move Fast, Lift Heavy podcast. This is Joe Roscoe, co-host of MFLH podcast. Thanks again for listening. If you like the pod, please rate, subscribe, leave a comment. It'd be greatly appreciated. As always, check out movefastliftheavy.com. If you want to check out our merch, if you want to check out our online training or our in-person gym up in Long Island. So as always, again, super grateful y'all are here. Let's bring on the man, co-host, founder of Move Fast Lift Heavy, Christian Harris.
What up? What up?
What up, my man? Always good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you as well, bro.
What's the off season looking like right now? How we grinding on the daily?
Got a lot of strength work, a lot of bodybuilding, not too many Metcons nowadays, and a lot of boring monostructural work.
I got you. All right. Well, yeah. We're excited for our guest. He just got done with the CrossFit Games himself, so I'm sure he's been probably just lifting and maybe taking it easy from breathing super heavy. So
yeah, no big deal. Placed third at the Games. Very similar to myself. He's an entrepreneur. He's a husband and father. Overall, good dude. He's been in the game for a minute. I'd like to introduce our next guest, Adrian Conway.
Hey, what's happening?
How we doing, bro?
Hey, I'm doing great. Honored to be on. Happy to be here with you guys.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
How you feeling after the Games?
You know, I'm feeling good, man. Honestly, I went into preparation a little differently than in the years past, of course. I mean, we're looking at, from 2011 to 2017, it was more of a focus for me. And then this year, it just happened to be something where it was like, oh, cool, I still got some fitness in there. I might as well go ahead and accept this invite and show up and have a good time with these guys. But with all that being said, I think my preparation being different and not being as overreached and not being as just kind of beat up, to be honest, like it allowed the experience to be a lot more enjoyable. And then post games, man, I felt great. Honestly, a little soreness, but felt fantastic.
Awesome.
That was going to be one of my questions, Christian, for Adrian was, so everyone listening, Adrian, you were in the 35 to 39 men's division, correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So that was my question going into training and the approach to the season was, were you even like having that on your sights to qualify and to go to the Games?
Yeah, it's a good question. It was on my radar for sure. Like I knew because I was aging up, I was like, oh man, I guess I could see where I'm at right now and do the thing. And to be honest with you, I shared this with someone else, but I blame my wife for it. Last summer through COVID, everybody was feeling bored and she let something leave her mouth that made me be like, oh, that might be an invite for me to go back to the game. She was like, oh, it might be fun to go back to Madison. And I was like, oh, okay. I might just see if I can, get some fitness together and go back. But, I do still some online programming and like one-on-one coaching. And so I started to hop in with my athletes, of course, as they're getting ready for the Open. I don't want them out there always suffering alone. And then I try to humble them every now and again when I can still throw it in their direction. And so I was kind of in good shape going in, threw my hat in the Open. This was the first time since 2017 that I'd actually done that. And then the qualifier was easy and fun, and not easy like physically easy, but it was just easy, something to do because I didn't have to travel. And if I was like a more competitive athlete and needed to show up somewhere, I don't know that I could have swung that and made it happen. So because of that low barrier to entry, I threw my hat in the ring again and then qualified, and we just happened to be able to make the Madison trip work this year.
Nice.
Awesome, man. Good for you. So the last time you were competed in Madison, was that team the year you guys infamously took out Mayhem?
Yeah, man, that was it. I mean, I'd been there almost every year since, but as a vendor, of course, with a booth for FNX. But man, yeah, on the floor, that was it. That was the last time in 2017.
All right, so for the people in the back, if you've been watching the Games over the past, 4, 5, 6 years, you obviously know how much of a force that Mayhem has been to be reckoned with. This is the guy who has in history taken down Mayhem. The only time they haven't won the Games. It's something I'm aspiring to do myself.
I'm aspiring for you, bro. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's a lofty task to, be able to take Mayhem out. Tell us a little bit about that year.
Yeah, man. First of all, it was, I'm really, it's interesting because their success has made it even more of a big deal right through the years when you're like, man, nobody else is making a run at these guys. So it's like, oh, what we did was actually pretty special. I'll be honest, going into, so 2016, I was like 2 points out from the games as an individual again. And so coming off of 2015, being there as an individual. And so with that happening to me and me also kind of realizing like, I have some interest. We had already talked about FNX wasn't launched yet, but it was something that was like already in the works. And with that being said, I knew I didn't have what it took commitment-wise to go in as an individual. And I got some really, really fit people here in Salt Lake City, man. It's not something that is, I don't think, widely talked about, but like in Utah, we put out like some really fit people on a regular basis. And I think it's just because it's a very active culture here nonetheless. Yeah, man, I wrangled up some of my friends we all live within about 25, 30 minutes of each other. Most of us are still here, actually. One of us has moved away. He lives in Texas now, but I pulled them together even in the summer. So this is probably only after 2 months after regionals in 2016. And I was like, look, I think we could put together a team that can win the CrossFit Games. If everybody's down, this is something that we kind of have to agree on and start to really think about now. And it wasn't like we, started training together at that point every single day or anything, but it was just like, hey, if you got weaknesses, let's tighten them up a little bit. If you got something you need to be focusing on, be focused on that. And then when the Open gets here, we'll start really buckling down. But it was a great season. We had phenomenal women. We had Tiffany Hendrickson, who the year before had been, I want to say she was 11 in the world at the CrossFit Games. And then Mandy Janowitz, who in that same year was like 26 in the world at the CrossFit Games. And then Michaela North, who the previous year, like I missed out, was like a point out from qualifying as an individual to the CrossFit Games. So our women carried us. And then my boys, Brennan Fjord, was the workhorse. And if anybody wants to find a Clydesdale to try to aspire to look like, they can go look at that guy. And then Mitch Butte was our young athlete that we brought on, and he was the only one who had never really competed like prior to regionals. So you talk about nervous. That guy was high strung for a minute, and then he really stepped up for us at the games.
Sure. Wow.
How would you compare the difference from that team experience to what you just went through just a couple of weeks ago in Madison as an individual?
Man, that's a good question. It's a world difference, though. World's different. So the backstory on that team, too, that we had is that, we were with Brute Strength at the time, and because I'd been coaching with them since their infancy. And essentially, my boy, Michael Kaziu, was like, hey, like I'm ready to put some of this smoke out here into the world and let them understand what we're trying to do. So they started a hashtag called Stop the Mayhem. And this is like 2 months before the CrossFit Games. And of course, everybody's getting wind of it. People are talking smack. How dare these guys call up the Mayhem? How dare, it's the champ, like all this. And then even when we get there, Rich is giving us a hard time about it. And it was awesome to do. But with that being said, there was a little bit of external pressure. And those expectations drove us the last 2 months of training. Of course, we were like, okay, so now we really got to do something special. It was so different this year because I showed up with like, hey, I'm going to do my best, but there was really no external expectation for me. I didn't even have the expectation of being on the podium or anything like that. It was just like, hey, I'm going to go out here, see some of my guys that I hadn't seen in a few years, that I had grown pretty close with through the competitive years, and, see how my fitness still stacks up. So in regards to like the overall experience, it was quite a bit different, man, because when we were there in 2017, it was really all business. Several of us had children already at the time, and we were starting to really run the entrepreneur side, several of us. And so we understood that us being there and having a presence there was actually kind of costly to some of our lifestyles. And like, we just didn't really want to show up and play any games. And this year it was like, me and my wife took a trip to Madison alone for the first time in like, goodness, 4.5 years. We had like 5 days to ourselves. So even though I concluded competition every day, we were still going out to dinner and having a good time together. And I was trying to, show her some attention that we hadn't been able to alone for that many consecutive days at least. So very different vibes, to be honest.
Good, man. Good. I'm actually upset I didn't get a chance to kick it with you for a little bit. I was planning on meeting up and linking up with people like you and James on that last day, and I actually ended up getting COVID while I was out there. So I've been on bed rest the past, I don't know, week and a half or so. So, definitely wanted to link up with you. Yeah. You had it earlier in the year as well, right?
I did. Yeah, I had it actually way back in October last year. So I had it back in the fall, and it hit me like a flu. How was your experience? Like, how did it go for you?
I had a pretty bad experience. The body aches were not kind to me at all. Like, I felt like I went through the games workouts, plus did a marathon. Like, my back, my hamstrings, calves, were sore, to the touch. It was crazy. I didn't really have any symptoms, chills and sore throat and things like that. But the body aches were unreal. I couldn't believe it.
That's crazy. So
I was like, it's not going to be that bad.
Right. Yeah. Like, you're healthy, you're fit, you take care of yourself. Luckily, we're blessed with that buffer, right? We were drawn to a sport and drawn to train. So it helps us really create that buffer to hopefully, a serious issue with it. But for me, it was a similar, like, my back. So I had told my wife, like, before I had other symptoms, that I was like, man, I think I strained my back doing something. I don't have any idea what it would be. So, like, almost 2 days prior for me, my back was like super tight and sore, like I'd hurt myself. And it turned out that it was from, it was those like, pre-COVID symptoms kicking in.
That's exactly what happened. I woke up on Sunday and I was like, I didn't even work out yesterday. Like, why do I feel like this? And I was in a house that had, a bunch of other athletes and people that were staying there, and I didn't want to get anybody sick. So I ended up just confining myself to that room until I got back home. Coming back off of it, what was your recovery like? Like, getting back into the gym, like, how long do you felt it was until you felt normal again?
So from that COVID experience, man, I was super gracious with myself, and it was really because of what I had seen and heard from other people and their experience. So I was like, man, I had been kind of, secluded, of course. Unfortunately, basically all of us in our family ended up getting it. My wife got it, my daughter got it, who was only, she was still 1 at the time. So we were a little concerned with how that would play out and what that looked like. But fortunately enough, she had like a fever for like 6 hours, and then it was nothing. She had no other symptoms. We were super blessed there. My son didn't get it somehow, at least never tested positive. But what I did was essentially, I got into the gym, I would say, and this was just in my garage gym, so I still wasn't back in our regular gym for quite a while, but, probably day 8. So I literally took a week off, did nothing. I was chilling, Netflix all day, emails, anything that I could to stay productive. But then day 8, I think I got into the gym and I literally just did some air. I basically did an extensive warm up. Like, that was what I did. That was it. No hard breathing, didn't even get my heart rate up, didn't get on the assault bike or anything to warm up, just literally some movement. Tried to break a little bit of a sweat, but I did notice that it spiked my heart rate, like just the subtlety of doing those things. And then the next day, just a little bit more. And then the next day, a little bit more. So what I did is kind of created this sequence of 4 days for me in the gym, where I started doing some lifting on day 3. And then by day 4, I started to do some intervals and some lifting and kind of got back into it.
When you saw Dan Bailey go down with COVID, as along with other athletes, but him being in your division, were you sweating that at all? Like, how was that when you all first got there? Were you even thinking about it? Like, oh, well, you already actually had it, so I don't know. Just tell us about that experience with you show up and it's not your typical games. Like, there's testing going on. There's all this buzz around. Oh, this person's out now and this person's out.
Yeah, so it was wild, honestly, because to be honest with you guys, my son was sick before we left. So in my mind, I was already like, oh man, I'm gonna have to cancel this trip to Madison. We all gonna have COVID again somehow, right? Like, I was just worried about testing positive. Although my wife and I also got vaccinated. We've got several people in our family that are high risk. So we really did that out of the consideration of them. But long story short,
you never know though, right? Like,
you never know. And especially being vaccinated, I'm like, well, now I could definitely have it and not know, because that's the idea, right? Is to reduce the response or the physiological, stressors that it can have with you. So, anyways, we did send my son to get tested before we got on the flight, just of course to be considerate of everybody else. And he was a negative, thank God. But then we get there and my wife's still sniffling and going through all this. So I'm like, great, I'm going to have to compete with the flu or compete sick. And then people started testing positive for COVID. And I was like, no. So my heart was broken for Dan because I knew, I mean, it's been years since my man got to step on the competition floor. We're all masters. So it was like a great way to kind of segue to get back on. And so I was heartbroken for him. But to see, this was another admirable part from my perspective of how CrossFit was doing the best they could with this bad situation, is that they were still able to, negotiate and navigate getting most of the athletes through. Even though people tested positive, I mean, heck, it could have been a big outbreak there that way. And somehow they kept it from happening to the rest of the field, which was awesome. But it was definitely different, definitely something on the back of your mind. No one wanted to have to bow out after. I mean, you guys know what it's like to make the investment, to make a trip, to cover your bases, especially when you're an entrepreneur, to make sure things are taken care of in your absence and all that. So it would have just been a huge headache if all that would have been for naught. So I'm really grateful that we made it through and that not more athletes were affected.
Yeah, speaking of Dan Bailey and like some of those other guys, it just kind of shows you how the sport has changed, where you asked those guys maybe 5 years ago or so, hey, would you ever consider doing masters? Because at the time, you didn't have like big names in the masters division per se. And then now that the sport has continued to progress, when you got there, you probably already knew this, but it's no joke because those guys that were, a couple of years ago at their prime or like at top of the leaderboard in just the quote unquote normal division are now in this 35 to 39. You're looking around, you're like, oh shoot, this is still stacked. Like these guys are.
It's real, man. It's real.
and there was, Dan, he would have competed. And I even remember at one point, Josh Bridges saying like, oh no, I'd never do it. But now y'all are like still at that elite level. So how was that when you were still having fun with your wife and still trying to keep it loose? But man, you had some high expectations as far as competitiveness going there.
Oh, no doubt. I will say I think the evolution of the Masters division is something that will continue to take place. And I think that it has to start with, guys like myself. I mean, I don't consider myself a big name in CrossFit, but Dane Bailey, James Hobart, Kyle Kasperbauer, who's been on the podium, right? Like you guys got to remember, man, this is a top 3 guy, fittest man in the world. And like year after year too, he just steps up and it's just, he's so fit. But and I say that because I really think that for them to lead the way makes it more attractive for other guys, right? And so I think eventually what we will see is like, this group of 20, like you're gonna know all 20 eventually. Like you're gonna remember seeing them on the floor as individuals, all 20, as long as they can still make it work with their lifestyle, depending on what they got family and business wise. But I think it's a beautiful thing, honestly, because to me, it's like this is the perfect balance for me, right? Like I can still be fit enough to get there. And when we're on the floor, we're all doing our best to get that W and get that, get on top of the podium or win that particular workout. But in the back, it's just a little different. It's more laid back. It's like we know, like literally in the back, guys are talking about their kids and like what's going on and like what sports they're playing. And oh man, yeah, you would never believe last weekend. It's just such a different vibe than it is individually and even on the team side now because it's so competitive. So it's a very refreshing, and I think that. I understand a little bit where the pride can sink in on someone like Josh Bridges, who's been at the apex of the sport for so many years. And then he sees that master division. He's like, come on, man. Like, I don't know. But I mean, now it'd be hard. It'd be hard for him, to be honest.
Yeah,
right?
it's different now.
Yeah. So I think it's awesome for the sport. And for me, I was asked this question, like, what made you want to go? And I was just like, I don't know. I qualified, so why not? Right? If I can make it work, why not?
That's awesome, man. I'm curious about that run event. Because you didn't only have, one division out there at a time. Wasn't there multiple divisions out there? Like you had the Young Thundercats, you had, every division out there basically running at the same time, no?
Yeah, we did. And it made it hard to know who was who to a degree, especially like for some of the, like, of course, if it was a team that was passing you or something, you're like, cool, go get yours, buddy. Like I'm good with it. But then like, if someone passed me, I'm like, wait a second, was this one of the guys that I just passed from like the 40 to 44, or is he in my group? Because especially it was event 1, so we didn't know each other's all faces yet either. So that made it very interesting. Yeah. And that was a brutal event. By the way. that morning it was nice and cool, and then all of a sudden, after all the rain done fell, the sun came out and was like just beating on me, and I was like, oh man, that was rough. I mean, I ran a 6:53 mile split for 4.5 miles, and I got ninth in that event in our division. And I was like, I thought for sure that was going to be a top 5 event for me. Really, I really did. And
that just goes to show you something about the sport, just the level of talent that's there, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And that workout devastated me more than all the other ones. Sadly, like I was sore the rest of the weekend from the run alone. I was like, oh man, I'm going to start putting down some miles now.
Christian, before we transition into the entrepreneurship and the business, and I'd love to hear you all just go back and forth on it because you're so similar in your daily grind as entrepreneurs and family guys. Is there any last things you want to cover with the CrossFit Games before we move on?
Give me 3 tips on what I got to do to beat Mayhem coming up. Oh, man, 3 tips. You know, man, I don't even know if there's 3 things I can come with off the top of my head. So I will say, you know, one that's really important is that everybody on the team that you're able to put together or you're out there grinding with has to expect that outcome. They can't hope for it. They can't pretend and be like, yeah, you know, like you got to really know, like, yeah, we're gonna go and we're gonna have that affiliate cup and our name will be etched on the side of that thing. Like that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna drink some champagne out of it. I'm gonna eat some cereal on day 3 after, you know, like have those visions and have those expectations, and don't be willing to settle for anything else because the training alone, I think, and the mindset that you have to have is that you got to really, and then I'll just say point 2. So that's point 1. Point 2 is study film on them. And I say that because I knew, not everybody else on my team was doing this, and I didn't expect them to be doing this. But you play college football, you know, right? Like the film room is like where you can.
It's funny you say that.
Especially in the sport of teams, I think. So, you know, to be successful, I think you got to view it as we're racing. We're not working out. We know Mayhem, they work out a lot. They're great at working out. You can't beat them at working out, but I think you can beat them in a race. So you got to look at the sandbag and the worm and the transitions completely different than how they do. They're going to completely keep their cool. They're going to have that swagger like Rich. They're going to never fatigue. But if you can gain 3 seconds in that one transition, and then you gain another 7 in that second transition, and then all of a sudden you get a movement that's in your favor where you got a girl that might go bigger because it's squats and something, you know what I mean? Like then you create an advantage or like an opportunity at least for yourself. And then the third thing is, man, you got to have some girls that's killers. They got to be the ones, you know what I mean? Like, especially I would say the girls that they've got now, this is where it kind of.
Yeah. They've been on great teams in the past.
Great teams in the past. And more importantly, I'll be honest, when I say that, like the team that they had in 2017 that we were fortunate enough to beat, they had some holes, right? And I don't mean that they were maybe less fit, but mentally they weren't the same as these 2 girls that they've got now. Like really, I would categorize these 2 girls as killers. You know, they're dogs because they want to win almost more than Rich because they don't got as many rings as him, and they trying to get some rings because he's been kicking their butt for the last couple of years, right? So they're like, okay, now we got to get W's with him, and they're really harsh competitors that way. So I think you got to definitely come and match that with that mentality and psychologically with the women that you come with, and not that men aren't important. You know it is, but it's just like men can kind of be that dime a dozen find, right? Like we can be really fit and do the thing, but if we're equal to Rich in one workout, maybe 2, we're that's awesome, right? But then like we got to find ways to differentiate those points and create balance across the scoreboard. So those would be my 3 tips, man. And then you got to win some workouts outside of the traditional CrossFit scope, I think, because you know when it comes down to it. Thrusters and bar muscle ups or ring muscle ups and squat snatches, you know what they're going to do. They're going to go take those.
Man, I couldn't believe it watching them this year. Like, it just looks easy for them. It's crazy.
Yeah, it really is. And I think they're better now than they were then at those things. So, like the worm, they're better at. The sled, they're better at. For us, when I put together our team, that was one of the things. It was like, hey, I need some gymnasts, really high gymnast capacity women. that want to compete and win. And then our men needed to be able to outwork them on grunt work stuff, right? Like if we saw sandbags, we had to take that event. If we had the sled, we had to take that event. And then anytime that worm was there, like we had to at least be right there, with them, with no one apart. Yeah. And fortunately, I think that year we won all the worm events. And we just had how it is. It's like, to me, on a team, it's almost like you're recruiting a football squad versus necessarily the best CrossFitters, as long as they can still do gymnastics and swim.
Right.
All right. Christian,
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think that's some good tips right there. I think the first one you said, though, really hit home. It's like you can't walk in just like kind of believing or kind of thinking like, yeah, I think we could win. Like you got to go in saying we're burning the ships and we're either going to die or we're going to win. So I love that. Yeah. All right, let's go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, and you can't be afraid to say it. I think it's okay, right? People will be, or can't be afraid to really feel it and say it. I think, clearly we got hit on a little bit for hashtag Stop the Mayhem, but I was like, man, but there's like 39 other teams there. And what else would their goal be, right? Like they're the defending champs 2 years in a row at that point. And I was like, if you're not coming to win, I don't understand. Like it just confused me. So I think it's a piece of like confidence, but also humility where it's like, yeah, if we don't win, but we showed up to win, I'm still okay with that.
Yeah, you're also setting a tone for like the whole field. Like I hope everyone else has that same hashtag in mind. Like I hope everyone's showing up to take out our team as well. If you're going to show up, then show up. All right, let's transition into you two guys just doing the thing, all the things, owning businesses, having families, being CrossFit Games athletes. Let's rewind to like you starting out, Adrian, as an athlete in football, and then how you kind of made your way into CrossFit and found like these business niches, if you will, within the fitness community, which led you to FNX and other things that you've been dabbling in. And then Christian, you're going to have plenty to say on this. So I'm going to let you two guys just kind of, have a little coffee shop chat about just business and fitness and how it all kind of evolved.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, man, I wanted to play in the league from like the time I was a little boy. And I was always pretty a focused individual. Like people always called me like an old soul. I kind of was the guy that within my group of friends was trying to keep everybody's head on straight and focused on whatever that goal was, But I was fortunate enough to get a football scholarship to play at Weber State, which is a 1AA school up here in Salt Lake City, Utah, what's technically in Ogden. And, I had a great 4 years there, ins and outs with some injuries. I had a great showing on my pro day. The downside was that the biggest knock on me is that I couldn't stay healthy, right? So with those 4 years, I played, one full season. And then the rest, I missed 2, 3, and half a season 1 year. And so, it didn't matter how fast.
What position did you play?
I was a running back. So it didn't matter how fast I could run and how high I could jump. At that point, they were like, "Hey, it looks good. That's awesome. But if we're paying you, you gotta be able to last the grind. At least make it through camp." And so, nothing ever came to fruition after my pro day. I had some contacts and I got to go do a couple 2-day trials, which don't equal no checks and don't equal no signing bonus or nothing like that. But I did get to play 2 years of arena football. So I made the transition from playing running back to wide receiver, lost some weight, got down. I did catch a lot of balls in college, which was an advantage there for all the football buffs. But
would you sit at what weight?
In arena or college?
In college.
So in college, my senior year, I got up to about 216. And then when I played arena, I was down to about 190.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, big difference, man. And you know how it is. It's like in college as a running back, my coach was like, "Hey, man, you got to get as big and as strong as you can, period. Like, just be there." And I was definitely carrying some fluff. Looking back, I wish I would have been close to like 195, though. I wish I would have stayed right around like my natural weight at the time, because I think I would have recovered better, performed better, all that good stuff. But
sure.
Yeah, I made that change to play arena ball. And while I was playing arena ball, that's when I heard about CrossFit. Literally somewhere online, I think it was through a training camp called Jim Jones. Christian, if you remember Jim Jones back in the day. the guys that trained like the guys from 300 and got my man's ready to play Superman, Henry Cavill back in the day. So I was looking into their training protocols, and like I had studied kinesiology and human performance at Weber State. And so I was doing some training like performance wise for athletes, getting them ready for their pro days, training the men's basketball team, women's basketball team, all that kind of thing.
Sounds very familiar.
Hey man, like it was a natural way for me not to have a real job, right? Like that's really the way that I showcase it to most people. It's like I didn't want to have a real job. My whole life I wanted to stay around sports. And I found CrossFit. Outside in, I was like, it looks okay. And then I saw the games, and that was the year Graham Holmberg won, 2010. And I was like, I think he was a football player, so I could probably do that sport. And I started looking into it a little bit more. I ended up getting my level 1 at the end of 2010, beginning of 2011. It was like December 2010, I believe, right around the holidays, in Park City. Spieler, Miranda, Matt Chan, Eric O'Connor. Like it was a great staff. Spieler made me do Fran with dumbbells, crushed me. Just, oh man, had to have the guy that
dumbbells are devastating.
Oh man, devastating. And I wasn't working out with other people yet. So I was in this group of like 35 people doing Fran with dumbbells. Like ain't nobody going to beat me at this.
Trying to go hard.
Going hard, bro. And watch, you'll see when we get you out here. But Park City's high at altitude. So I'm like driving down the canyon on the way back, and I had to have my boy pull over because I thought I was going to throw up in his car. It was so bad. But I fell in love with it that weekend, man. Like the strength conditioning element of it all, the nutrition, the approach, the community more so. And then that's when it really started for me. I wanted to do it first as a competitor. And then throughout the years, I really fell in love with being able to coach it, lead people, and lead the community.
Wow, man. It's funny, like just hearing you go through your story. It's pretty similar to mine and how I got into CrossFit as well. I mean, I'm not going to bore anybody with the details of mine. I'm sure you guys have heard it being on this podcast multiple times. But where did you get into the supplement game along the way?
Yeah, it's a good question. I tell people I've been in the supplement game since I was like 15, man. And the reason is because, my dad growing up, he was a gym rat. He loved the gym. He was more on the bodybuilding side of things. And I remember being a little boy sipping on his chalky, nasty vanilla protein, being like, ooh, yum, can I have some more? Those kind of experiences as a child. And then when I was 15 or 16 and the gym became a part of my vision for what I could be as an athlete, I was dabbling with creatine and whey protein. And those were the primary things that I would take then throughout the years until I got to college. And then I started to learn a little bit more about, pre-workouts and caffeine stimulating workouts, and of course, beta alanine. And what I was doing at the time was kind of going through the poor man's way of finding like wholesale products and then like mixing stuff together. You know what I mean? Like if I could get some pure caffeine, mix half a teaspoon in with some beta alanine and shaking it up and going into the weight room and hitting it. Like that's what I was doing through college, just because I wasn't trying to buy the Nitro Tech and all the other muscle farm and all the stuff that was like out of my budget at the time. And that's kind of where my curiosity sparked. And then of course through college, taking a lot of nutrition courses that helped me understand the benefits and importance of how you fuel. And then really when I started CrossFit in 2011, 2012, and I was still kind of doing the same thing. I did come across a few brands that I partnered with in the past. I was with SFH back in the day. I was with Progenics for a time. I got an experience and really got to see a little bit more of the business side and understand of like how this stuff actually works and how formulation and what the process was like and what I felt could be better or could change, right? Like if I could have things my way, I would just, make some things a little bit different, or these are the products that I would do. So, long story short, through the years, as they kind of passed by, I was basically curious on like, okay, is this what I'm going to do the rest of my life? I'm going to simply coach and lead athletes through their career. And that was something I was pretty resolute with. I was teaching CrossFit seminars at the time as well. So I was honored enough to wear the red shirt, and I still do. But I wanted something different, and I ended up meeting Skylar Farnes in the beginning of 2016. Skylar is our CEO, and he's the one that has more of a business background than I do. And with that being said, he absolutely loved CrossFit, had been training in a gym for the past couple years, like right before we met. And basically what we did was, he had this vision for this brand, right? And he had FNX already in mind. And he would meet with me and chat with me about it. Like, hey man, this is kind of something that I want to do. What are your thoughts on this? Like, what would you do? What have you taken in the past? What do you take now? What do you really use? And as we got into the intricacies and the details of that kind of stuff, it took us, 3 or 4 times sitting down and actually meeting together, which lasted a couple hours each time unintentionally. And we were like, hey, why don't we just try to do this together? So that's kind of where we wholeheartedly formed this partnership, and then really decided, okay, so this is the way it's going to work. This is where we're going to do our stuff. We're going to do everything through Utah. We're going to be local. This is what we can do in regards to marketing. This is where we want to fall price-wise. How are we going to set ourselves apart? Well, we wanted to have the best products that we could. We wanted to have products that involved pretty low carbohydrate content, right? At least for the most part, because we know that's what a lot of people enjoy, right? They're trying to stay tight to their macros, but still enjoy a treat and still get something beneficial out of it. But ultimately, one of the biggest ways that we've been able to set ourselves apart, and the vision from the beginning, was to create a community, a lot like we both experienced in CrossFit. And we really do that through our ambassador program and the people that throughout the country get an opportunity to be closely connected to us as individuals and as a brand. So that's a little bit of a Cliff Notes version, a little wordy, so I apologize.
No, that's all good, man. It's good for the people to hear. It's good for the people to hear.
That's what we're here for, Adrian. That's what we're here for.
We're here for the words.
Yeah.
All right. So husband, father, athlete, coach, supplement king. We got you doing programming as well?
Yeah.
We said you have a couple of athletes.
I still keep a small handful of personal athletes that I work with, kind of oversee their development and training. And then we have something called TRUE, which stands for Train to Rise Up, and that's through FNX. But essentially it was through demand. I used to work with Brute Strength, and then it just kind of got hard for me to kind of promote and be a part of 2 different camps. And I love those guys at Brute. They're still my boys, still help them out when I can, and they do the same back with me. But we started TRUE, just shortly after the Open this year, because a lot of our ambassadors are coming to us for products and nutrition advice, and they were like, hey, do you guys got some programs to follow? So we started that as well.
So give us a little insight of how you stay balanced throughout your daily life. Is this something you've always been good at? Maybe some best practices on how to better balance your day, things like that. Give us a little insight.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So, for me, it wasn't something that really came natural. You look at me back in my school days, I was not the kid with the binder, with the organized stuff and the proper execution on like a long-term project. I'm the last minute guy, hustle and bustle, get it done. That's how I perform. I would still pull a good grade, but I was waiting to the last minute. And so this process of, I'll call it being organized and keeping my priorities, is something that I got better at with time. Because when I first started in the fitness industry, man, I was just a bum, right? Meaning that I was a coach. I was working out all day. I just lived in the gym. That's all I did. That's it. And it wasn't as an entrepreneur more so. I mean, it was to a degree, of course. I was seeing personal athletes and doing that, but I was still working for a gym that I didn't own and managing it. So I just consider myself, my wife had the grown-up job and I had the little kid job, So through the years, as it evolved, I'm very fortunate to say that I've been able to remain very spiritually rooted. So I'm really close with God. I've got a lot of men in my life that are close with God, and I aspire to be like those guys, and fathers like those guys, and husbands like those guys. And with that being said, that really helps me keep first things first, and for me, that looks like trying to stay as close to God as I can, because when I do that, I'm a better husband to my wife. I'm a better servant to her. I'm a better leader. I love my kids better. I'm more patient with them. And to me, that's the right order of operations. It's like my relationship with God, my relationship with my wife, then my kids. And then after that, everything else falls into place. Business is what takes up a lot of my day. But it's about keeping those other cups full with my family and my spiritual walk. And I know that then I'm a better businessman because I can just focus on that. I don't got to worry about things at home and like wonder what if and be walking on eggshells because I have to call my wife and say like, hey, there's a call that I got to be on at 5:30. I'm not going to make it home until 6:30. You guys can eat without me. If that has to happen, and I haven't been able to prioritize her, she doesn't feel, like she's important to me, then that would be an issue. But luckily, if we're doing the things the right way, it's not. And so she respects that and understands that. So I think it's a little bit, I'll be honest with you. I think I get advice on it regularly. I'm humble enough to know I don't got all the answers. But I want to drive this business and keep it as successful as possible. And then fitness falls in there after that, and right now in my life, that's just the way it goes, which is why I shared with you guys, like my experience at the games this year was just different. It was like, there were some workouts where I was like, man, I could have, man, I feel like I had some more in me in that workout, but I didn't have it at the time just because my training was different, So with that being said, man, it has taken some time. I've gotten some advice. I try to watch how other people move that I admire. You know what I mean? Even yourself, Christian, it's like I'm always peeking and seeing like, man, this guy's got a lot going on. He's in a lot of places. He got a lot of people helping him out. But that's also the big part of it is like you understand delegation. Absolutely. And so I've learned that with FNX, man. It's like I've somehow been able to go from me and Skylar in a small office to having our own building. There's 3 stories and we're currently, manned up in 2 of them. We got about 20 people here with us. And I would say that several of them are smarter and better at me at this business thing. And that's like the dream. You know what I mean? I want people pushing the ship forward that do it better than me in their particular role. And that's why we brought them on. So I think it's a combination of all those things. I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely. I think that was great insight.
Can I jump in on that part you just talked about just now, Adrian? I think a lot of the time for people getting the cliche statement, getting started is the hardest thing. Can you go back to when you and your partner, his name left me. I'm sorry. You can
Skylar. Yep.
Skylar. When your partner Skylar and you all were just kind of in the very foundational part of this, where seeing if you can make it happen, and you start to have the doubts creep in, or you feel inadequate, or you want to have all the answers now, and you never will. Can you go back to that time and then just kind of run us through like how you overcame that and how like slowly that snowball of momentum started to evolve for you?
Yeah. I mean, I can be honest with you guys and say that I had been in more than 2 handfuls of meetings where some things was being said. I had no idea what they was. Like, I was like, excuse me, hold on a second. Now you got to bear with me now. What does CRM mean? Okay, cool. We're on the same page. I got it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I had to ask, and I really felt embarrassed. I'll be honest with you. Like, again, my business acumen and experience is very minimal. So my learning curve over that first like 8 months that we had was like tremendously steep. So I got my nose in, hey, how to start a business for dummies. How to, I'm at home studying like I'm in college because like I got to be ready for this meeting the next day. And if I'm going to know what these guys over at GNC are pitching us and want us to come on board with, like, I gotta really like be up on my game here. And so there's so many different things that where it's like, I had those insecurities and getting started was hard for me. You have that aspect of like imposter syndrome where you're like, man, am I really cut out for this? Because I'm just a guy that works out, right? Like in my mind, I'm just simple that way, right? I love to work out. I like to work hard. So luckily that favors me in the long term, right? Like if I don't know something, I'll figure it out. And I'm humble enough to be like, hey, I don't know this, man. So, put me up on game, or I'm probably not the best person to run with this aspect of our business. And I would say it took a while for us to get some momentum. I mean, I remember getting our first few sales at the CrossFit Games. So when we were there in 2017 as a team, my partner Skylar and one of our other partners, less of a practicing partner, Tim, they were running the booth. So while I was out on the floor, they were running the booth. I remember seeing the sales like the first couple of days because we launched that August, and like how excited it was just to have people buying from us. Then getting back, being the only ones in the office, Skylar and I are sitting at this one wooden table in a car dealership because that's where our office was a table, like a small office in a car dealership, and like being like, okay, so how are we going to move this now? right? Like what are we going to do with these ads? Like we got to figure out more about Facebook. We have to, like, there were so many different moving parts, and the days were long, and the productivity at the time felt very minimal, right? Like I felt like I was just twiddling my thumbs to a degree, almost waiting for the next purchase. And then we're like, okay, so now we can move. We got a couple purchases. We got some inventory moving. We got to think about the next. You got to think about the next order, right? And so many different things were there and a challenge. But through hard work, I think trust and perseverance, being willing to stick our necks out there, ask people for opportunity, having great connections with athletes in the space. It really helped us grow. And, then it got easier when momentum did start. It got easier to dream of what the future could be, to think like, oh man, we're going to be able to come out with a lot more products. And, oh, we really are going to be able to hire this full-time web design person. And now they're on our team and not just someone that we're hiring, by demand or by contract to help us navigate certain problems or situations. So things get easier. And like you said, as cliche as it sounds, Joe, it's like getting started is the hardest thing. No doubt.
Yeah.
How was that for you, Christian, with either the clothing company or starting your gym? Did you kind of go through those same things?
Of course. I'm still going through some of it. Every day is a new opportunity to learn and try to improve and get better. I think in the beginning the clothing was definitely the harder part, I think, for me anyway, just because I kind of thrive at coaching and being around people. So from the gym standpoint, as long as I was in front of people, I knew I was going to be able to deliver and put a good product out there. And then once I met Anthony and we combined, which was early on in the stages, we were able to delegate and, feed off of each other in a point that we're not running ourselves into the ground. But from the clothing standpoint, for me, that was pretty tough just because it was all on my shoulders, like literally building from the ground up to where we are now. So.
Yeah. Adrian, what did you learn? You talked about, you were attending these meetings and there were some things that were going over your head or whatever. What were you naturally good at that now, like in other aspects of life or fitness or whatever, that now have evolved into other fields in your business where like, day one, I wouldn't have had a prayer of doing what I'm doing now, but now like I'm evolving as a businessman and acquiring these skills or knowledge.
I think a lot of it evolves around understanding how to mitigate risk. To be honest with you, right? It's about, hey, we do need to get ahead of this purchase. This inventory is not sold out yet, but we got to be here right now, and trusting the process and fulfillment and the cycle rate, and knowing that like when we don't have products to sell, we're losing money. And when we don't have inventory and people want it, we're losing money. And to be able to provide that, and then also trust others through the delegation process to do their job, right? It was different for me on a team, like a football team or even a CrossFit team, because I knew exactly what responsibilities someone needed to have. In business, it was so new for me to bring on a hire and to be like, hey, this is your role. I want you to kind of handle it. Like, I want you to kind of run with this. Like if we have someone that's designing our products for us or designing our like apparel, taking care of that, making sure that that's there. Because I had never served a full-time role in that area, it was hard to be like, okay, I'm just going to let them do their thing. Of course, help them and oversee that. But that was a challenge. And I think that that's something that everyone here has become much improved. Because of course, if you're able to see someone step up and you gain trust with that particular individual with that role, it's there. And then for me, luckily enough, to be honest with you, I get to do now what I'm naturally good at for the most part, right? Which is educate and inspire and through our brand. So whether it's content driven stuff and talking about fitness and exercise and nutrition and the combination of nutrition and supplementation, or if it's creating relationships. Right now we're in a bit of a growth stage where I get to interact with athletes like Christian or their managers like Deb or whomever it might be to kind of see like what's next for us with trying to appear in new audiences. So that's kind of what a lot of my day-to-day is now, is really brainstorming, appearing in front of new faces and what that looks like with our influencers and athletes.
Yeah. Sounds like, yeah, I was just talking to someone about this, about starting businesses, and you follow your passion ultimately and you do what you're good at. And then everything else, you either fake it till you make it if you can. And
Figure it
then,
out, man.
and then you hire people, when you have the revenue and the ability to, or you partner up with people and have them do the tasks that that you just can't cut it at. And you just stay in your lane with your passion. And that ultimately drives you to the success.
That's right.
Christian, we're going to be wrapping it up here. So you got any last questions or last topics you want to cover with Adrian before we let him go?
Let's hit him with a spitfire real quick.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll step aside. Let me get out of the way.
Just a couple quick questions. Say the first thing that comes to mind. Would you rather move fast or lift heavy?
Oh, man, I got to move fast. Hopefully that makes me lift heavy. You know what I mean?
I feel you. Coffee or pre-workout?
Coffee. Even though I'm making these supplements, boy, I gotta have a good cup of Joe.
How do you take it?
Straight, the good stuff.
All right.
But I enjoy a really good cold brew or a nitro. That's my preference.
Current favorite sneaker?
That's hard for me. Man, I'm such a basic. I gotta be honest. I'm demoing some sneakers that I can't really talk about in too much of a public forum quite yet. But it's a great trainer. It's going to be coming into the space towards the end of this year. And the whole unique part of it, and the reason that I'm kind of a part of this process, is because it's a unique design in regards to that it's very environmentally friendly, right? Like, so from start to stop,
sure. Yep.
On the production line, it's very unique, and that's, I wore them at the CrossFit Games, so it was a tennis shoe that I wore at the CrossFit Games, man. So I'm gonna rock with that. It's rad. RAD.
All right. Favorite brunch food?
I'm a big fan of an omelet bake, so it got to be like a fluffy omelet, specifically with
like a frittata.
Like a frittata, like a Greek frittata. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Those kind of ingredients. Yes, sir.
Gotcha. If you had to pick one exercise for the rest of your life.
Oh, Lord. It's not my favorite movement, man, but I'd have to go with the thruster. It's not my favorite in a competition.
A lot of bang for your buck. Get a lot of bang for your buck with that.
Man. You can keep it light and do it long, or you can do it heavy and do it short, and get a lot out of that thing. So I'd say maybe that movement.
Give us an idea of your current playlist.
An idea of my current playlist is, commonly I get on right now. I'm doing a lot of running. I don't know if you guys saw, but I'm getting ready for a marathon. I'm going to do my first marathon
right?
October 9th. Yeah. So just something new for me. But in that, I'm doing a lot of R&B, and I usually let Apple decide. So I'm finding a good new playlist. I'm an R&B head to the core. So you could find me in the gym banging weights, and it's still kind of like some slow vibes, just grooving. And that looks like a lot of different artists. But I would say primarily R&B.
Okay. I respect it. I like to listen to R&B when I run. Try Frank Ocean Essentials.
Oh, yeah.
On Apple Music. It's good stuff.
I'll get that going. I believe it.
All right, man. That's all I got for you.
I love it. Hey, it was an honor to be on, man. This is a fun show. You guys do it right.
I appreciate it, man. It's a pleasure having you.
Absolutely.
All right, Adrian. Thanks so much for joining us on the pod. Appreciate you.
Yep. Thank you guys for having me. I'll tune in anytime.
All right, later.
See it, bro.
All right, Christian, there it is. Another one done. Episode 9 with Adrian Conway.
Another one in the books. I got to make sure I get my way out to Utah.
Yeah.
Get out to the FNX facility and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm telling you, lots of inspiration there. Having an office in a car dealership, and now they're in a 3-level facility and making some waves. So, everyone listening, I know that a lot of y'all are probably CrossFit fanatics, or you love the sport and love competing, but I'm sure there's a handful of you that have business aspirations. So rewind this thing and listen to it a couple of times because, Adrian's
definitely a lot of gems in here. A lot of gems.
Yeah. He's trailblazing for sure. So props to him and awesome to have him on. Been listening to his stuff on his podcast and just on socials for a while. So that was cool to get to chat with him. All right, dude. We just dropped the MFLH the Move Fast swim club, or what's it called? What are you doing now?
It's the swim club. It's part of the Shark Tank collection.
I know I'm a part of all this, but you just pump it out, man. I can't keep track of you.
It's the swim club. It's part of the Shark Tank collection. This is our 5th year, doing some sort of shark inspired theme.
Yeah.
So if you guys haven't checked it out already, check it out. And as always, work hard, stay humble, and be nice.
That's right. That bag is it's all fire, but that bag's fire.
That's your swim bag right there. Throw your swim cap, your goggles, all that good stuff.
I got to get my hands on that. All right. Appreciate you, bro. I'll talk to you when I talk to you. All right.
All right now.
All right, everyone. Adrian Conway, Christian Harris. I'm Joe Roscoe. Thanks again for listening in to Move Fast, Lift Heavy podcast. If you enjoyed the pod, please rate, subscribe, leave a comment. Be greatly appreciated. If you want to try out our online training program, get yourself a free shirt with sign up at MFLHtrain.com, or you can just go to movefastlift.heavy.com, get you some swag at the same time. All right, later. Bye.
My name is Christian Harris. I'm a CrossFit athlete, coach, trainer, and founder of Move Fast Lift Heavy. MFLH has always been more than just apparel. It's a way to train, it's a lifestyle to live, and now we've leveled up that mantra by creating our online training platform. Move Fast Lift Heavy now provides personal online programming. The programming can be done either in a gym, with a garage gym setup, or even from the comfort of your own home with a dumbbell or even at body weight. This isn't just your typical workout block. You'll have unlimited access to our coaching staff to ask questions and submit technique videos. MFLH has always been more than just an apparel line. Now you can be a part of the team. Click the link to get started, and let's get to work.